You know, they're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
Ele tem nome. Ele tem nome. Shut your fucking mouth, ele tem nome. Ele tem fucking nome. Now one is ele tem nome.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there. I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think? John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I am gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up, MCR family? It's our second show of the day. I mean, another air horns for us, right? Honestly, because we're so special. But obviously, it's UFC 234 preview predictions: Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum, Israel Adesanya versus Anderson Silva, and that's about it for that card. God knows how the pay-per-view buy rate is going to be for this one, especially since it is, I think, the first pay-per-view of the ESPN era. So that's going to just be interesting to see, how that sort of affects buy rates, if it does, especially on a card that really doesn't have a lot of star power attached to it, other than maybe the co-main event, and that's about it. But other than that, we have Colby Covington coming out saying he's going to sue the UFC. Oh, that's funny.
Emotional. Why you emotional?
That's
Why
great.
you emotional?
What a snowflake. Plus Bellator news. Gareth Davies coming out talking about his Sky Sports deal, plus the European series having a Channel 5 deal. Ton of other stuff to get to of the day. But of course, I'm joined by our new co-host, Mr. Fugatti, as you know him. Fugatti, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm ready to talk about these fights. I think, like you said, not a lot of star power, right? But at least the two like main events, or one main event, one
the two
co-mains.
Yeah, the two co-mains.
At least they're both going to be very entertaining. Most likely end in knockouts. Both of these guys are. Both these fights are just. It seems like stand-up fighters. So a lot of heavy punches. So I think that, to me, as more of a boxing fan, when I was looking at this card, I was like, this is entertaining for me, because I really like Adesanya, because I think he's kind of like a phenom in sorts. I think he didn't even start till he was 21, and just his record, 15 wins, I think 12 knockouts. So a lot of stuff I'll actually understand on the striking side, whereas like I'm still trying to learn some of the other stuff. So I think very interesting card for people who like striking.
Absolutely agree.
On these two fights.
Absolutely agree. And plus, like, we have a bunch of young talent on this card, like Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya, Kevin Gastelum. All three of those guys are very young in those sort of two top fights. Even though Anderson Silva is obviously far past his prime, he's still a legend. And I think he still sort of holds some cachet in the fan base, sort of like a Fedor Emelianenko, sort of like a Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell. Like, there is still some reverence to what Anderson Silva is. And even though I think there is obviously a question about, and we're basically going to get into, I think, the Israel Adesanya fight first, because that is, let's be honest, the people's main event. I said this on the boxing show earlier, but like, this is the best fight of the weekend, period. It's Israel Adesanya versus Anderson Silva. for a variety of reasons, for all the storylines attached to it that weave from it. You know, the factor or the dynamic of the legend versus the young up and comer, the phenom. I mean, that has been built into combat sports and martial arts overall for probably centuries, millennium. Let's be honest, especially when you think about martial arts and you go back like in Japanese and Chinese history, like that is a embedded storyline in the culture of martial arts. And on top of that, both these guys, I think, really personify like the artistic nature of martial arts and combat sports in general. I mean, both guys are like highly creative within the cage. Both guys are highly fluid fighters. People, and they both, I think, in their own respective ways at respective times, have innovated the entire game. People didn't have head movement the way Anderson Silva had in MMA until Anderson Silva. And now we have guys like Atija Dillashaw who tries to do that. Conor McGregor tries to do that at times. You know, like Jose Aldo at times has sort of mimicked Anderson Silva. John Jones, you know, the list goes on of guys that have sort of taken from Anderson Silva the innovations he's brought to the game. I think Israel Adesanya is going to be that person with his sort of dynamic, fluid kickboxing and just, again, the creativity behind it. You know, I am absolutely enthralled with this fight in tons of ways because I do think Anderson Silva is being counted out in a fight that he still has some chance in. I think Anderson Silva is a guy that still arguably beat Michael Bisping, who went on to become a champion. He's still a guy that arguably beat Derek Brunson. I know he did on terms of the resume, but a lot of people think he didn't. But he still arguably did beat Derek Brunson. You know, and he did beat Nick Diaz until it was overturned to a no contest due to a PD suspension. You know, it's not like Anderson Silva has been out here losing via knockout, losing via vicious domination. He's been competitive still and still arguably winning at the top level. Has he slipped since his prime? Absolutely. Is he the same fighter? No. But the reason why I think we can't look at him like a Jose Aldo, who I think has sort of refined his game in the later stages of his career. Look at this last weekend's fight against Moricano. I mean, that was a brutal knockout. It was amazing. Look at the fight against Raymond Stevens. That was brutal. Even look the fights against Frank Yeager. Like, he has adapted his games. George St. Pierre, another guy that's a legend in the sport. He adapted his game post Matt Serra getting knocked out. Anderson Silva never really has done that. And I think that is going to be his fatal flaw, not only in this fight, but his career overall. And why I think there is some credence to the fact that he is over the hill and why that is a determining factor in this fight, because he has not adapted. You can be over the hill and still be ultra competitive at the top. Look at Manny Pacquiao, even in boxing, for example, how he has, I think, dialed back his aggression, become more of a in-and-out boxer, really works off the jab, doubles up, triples up the jab constantly. I mean, Manny Pacquiao has evolved his game in the later stage of his career, post the Marquez knockout. Silva has not. I think that would be the determining factor when facing the younger and arguably, not really arguably, he is the more talented striker of the two. Adesanya is the more proven. The one hope that gives this, the one caveat to this fight is that Adesanya has been knocked out in his kickboxing career numerous times. So can Silva land that shot, knock him out, and shock the world and get the title shot against the winner of the main event? Absolutely. But I think Adesanya wins this one probably in the first or second round KO. I don't think it goes past 7 or 8 minutes. I'll put it that way, of action. I think Adesanya is going to dial in pretty fast. I think he'll be too quick, too fast, and Silva just doesn't have the reflexes like he used to, and he has not adapted his game to be a little more traditional Muay Thai, a little more traditional, maybe a little more defensive style. He is still the Anderson Silva we love, and that is unfortunately a fatal flaw. Fu, your thoughts on, in my opinion, one of the better fights we're probably going to see, and also just a great sort of passing the torch moment potentially in MMA.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the chat prior to this. Is that you know, in boxing there's a lot of passing of the torch, and researching this fight, I felt like that's what this is, right? Like, Silva came in and was leaps and bounds better than everyone at what he did, and now these new guys are coming in, and it's so impressive, like watching this Adesanya, you know, because He has so much going for him. Like, the kid literally like went, I think, to kickboxing, and then he did 8 professional boxing fights or boxing fights, and won, I think, 7 or 8, and won like all of them except for one. So he's like a great striker, you know, in every sense. You know, like he can knock you out with a kick. Isn't like the last one against Brunson, right? Like that knee to the face that really ended it in the first round when he tried like the takedown. It was perfectly timed, and you could see that he was looking for it the whole time. I don't think it'll end in a knockout, though. I really think that Silva's smarter. I think it'll go to decision, but I still think Adesanya wins. But I just don't think Silva will be aggressive enough or stupid enough to make a mistake that'll get him knocked out like that.
You know, sorry, keep going.
He's just older. He's, you know, and in fighting that matters. You know, he's gonna know what this kid's looking for. He's gonna know what he's trying to set him up for. And I think he'll just be smarter in the ring, and he might pick a couple moments, and maybe he gets knocked out. And Adesanya is the phenom everyone thinks. But the thing I was wondering is, Adesanya fought 4 times last year. So is he going to be 100% coming into this fight, or is he maybe doing too much?
I mean, that's obviously always a factor. I would say that his fights have been relatively dominant. Like, he hasn't had any punishment in those 4 fights. You know what I mean? Now, he does have training camp. He does have sparring. So the toll is really done in training camp. I do understand that. But in the fights themselves, we haven't really seen him struggle in any way, to be quite honest. I mean, God, who did he fight before Derek Brunson? God, why am I forgetting it? Please look it up for Gotti as I'm thinking. But like, he knocked out Derek Brunson relatively soon. You know, he's been rather dominant in that year. But from a more technical aspect, the reason why I think Silva's going to get stuck in a position where he will get caught is that both guys are natural, creative counter strikers that their entire game is predicated off of sort of catching you with the jab. And when I say catching you with the jab, not really catching you as in landing the jab, but making you sort of bite on it. That you know, Adesanya's going to be pumping the jab out there constantly, you know, tripling up on it. Silva does the same thing. He's always pumping out that jab, and it's all a bait. And I think both guys were going to get in that position where they're switching stances a lot. They're baiting each other, and one of them will bite. And I think it's going to be Anderson Silva. And even if it isn't, even if it is Adesanya, I think Adesanya at least have the youth on his side, enough reflex on his side that he will be able to avoid any danger he does come into. It will just be a fascinating fight because, again, it's going to be, you know, unemployed Mario Yamasaki, who's, again, one of the best chatters in our show because that name is just absolutely impressive. Deep cut in MMA lore and just lexicon. Saying that this fight could be boring, that they're 2 counter fighters fighting each other. I do see why that's a fear. The reason why I don't ultimately see that being a factor is because Silva recently has been really aggressive as a fighter. On top of that, Adesanya, I think, is a guy that understands the moment. I think he is a very self-aware individual when it comes to just the fighting world and timing and catching a moment. I think he will want the KO. Like, he will want to sort of get that big, spectacular highlight reel finish over Anderson Silva.
That last fight, by the way, was Brad Tavares.
Nice try.
5th round decision.
Yes.
So the reason I think this will go to decision is I think he's had 4 fights in the UFC. 2 of the 4 have gone to decision. Now, the last one ended a 1st round KO, obviously. And he did use the jab. You're right. Like, he used the jab to kind of get the guy to shoot at him. And then right when he did, he caught him with the knee. So, yeah, he uses the jab to kind of control the guy. Just like Silva. And I agree with Unemployed Mario because I've watched, you know, a lot of Silva fights because, you know, he's a guy you're going to know whether you really watch UFC or not.
Yeah.
He's just so big. But another guy that just controls distance well. But I think age will play a part in this. And that if it's a knockout, I think it'll be late rounds. But I really see the decision and it potentially even being like a split decision in a very close fight.
You know, another factor here is in terms of like how fast could this fight devolve into pure chaos and beauty at the same time. The reason why I think it's going to be quick, I think this fight's going to be a rather fast fight, energetic, crazy, and then it's going to be over in a flash. Because I think Silva has a chip on his shoulder. Like, he's been out in the media. Same with John Jones, because obviously Adesanya has been compared to both of them. And we could have another debate about that maybe later. But Silva's come out and said, like, I don't see the comparison. Like, we're different. Like, we're not the same fighter. John Jones has come out and said that. I think there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder of, you know, Silva saying, like, hey, like, they want to put him over me. Like, this is not a passing the torch moment. If I beat this guy, I get a title shot. And then on top of that, like, let's say Silva does beat Adesanya. What an impressive win it would be for Silva's career. You know, and it's sort of a rolling back of the clock in a way. You know, the last couple of years or few years for Silva has been a tumultuous one, to put it lightly, where I think a lot of people have jumped from his legacy in a fast way. And it's also been simultaneous with Demetrius Johnson beating his all-time record. You know, timing has not been on Silva's side. You know, how big of a win for Silva is this? And arguably, do you think it's a bigger win for Anderson Silva than it is for Israel Adesanya?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that even Dana White came out, right? He said, if Silva gets knocked out, it's most likely his last fight in the UFC. Like, you know, so for Silva, you know, fighters never want to quit. That's the craziest thing, you know, like we were joking around about the 53-year-old boxer today, right? Like, I think Silva's kind of the...
Mention his name. Put some respect on his name. Oliver McCall, the legend, okay?
Oliver McCall.
The legend, TBE.
Definitely a legend, fighting at 53 years old. Holy crap.
And winning.
And winning. But, you know, I think Silva's that guy. You know, like you see Wanderlei Silva, like he's still doing that, right? He's still fighting at his age. It's nuts to watch. You know, someone that age being able to get up for fights and win fights. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, this is what, 51 fights for Silva? Something like that. It's a lot.
Is it that many? Wow.
It's a lot.
It probably is. It's probably close to that.
And so if he wins against a dude who is kind of seen in that same John Jones, I mean, because a lot of people are making that comparison right now. It's pissing John Jones off a lot. Mm-hmm. But if he were to beat a young up-and-coming guy that's, you know, like literally been untested pretty much the entire time he's been in MMA, I think he's 70-something kickboxing matches. The dude's a really impressive fighter.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be huge for Silva. Like, everyone would probably freak out. And I think it would really throw a wrench in Dana's plans for the middleweight division, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think he sees that guy as like his next probably star.
I think we all do. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, Adesanya moves the needle, to use the Dana White term, right? He absolutely, like, does numbers. Like, everyone in the media sphere that I've been talking to is saying, like, hey, Adesanya videos, articles, they're all tracking well above the main event, well above anything right now in this week. You know, he's poised to a really big fight. But on top of that, it's on a card that I think is hurt by it being pay-per-view, hurt by the main event being what it is, unfortunately. A fantastic fight, but a fight that does not deserve to be pay-per-view. You know, I forget Whittaker's exact pay-per-view numbers in his last few fights, but they've been sub 250. You know, 250,000 pay-per-view buys. I think his last fight, Theo Romero, did like 190,000 buys. Like, he has not done well. I don't know. I'm concerned about this being a all-time sort of great moment, because it could be that, you know, passing the torch, you know, fight where we have a legend passing on to another potential legend, and that's always going to be something that we look back on, the, you know, the histrionics of the situation. But it's also going to be on a card that's going to do little to zero in terms of buys. And on top of that, it's also an ESPN event now. So could this now be played on SportsCenter all night and all morning on Sunday? It could be, and maybe my point's absolutely mute, and it doesn't matter. And Israel Adesanya is going to have a whole week of ESPN pushing him after a knockout, highlight reel of an Anderson Silva win. There's a lot that it doesn't matter here. But do you think that the pay-per-view is going to be horrendous, as I do, in terms of buy rate, and 2, do you think that ultimately matters at the end of the day?
Matters in terms of how it propels him into stardom?
Yes, and speaking of Adesanya specifically, yes.
I don't think that matters, because what happens in these knockout moments, imagine if all of a sudden people start knowing who Teofimo Lopez is. They're just going to go watch a bunch of knockout reels, right? So that's if all of a sudden people start going, hey, Stylebender is the future of MMA, then a bunch of casuals like myself and UFC are going to go watch it on YouTube, watch the guy get knocked out, watch some highlight clips. He's got a ton of personality. I don't know if I posted on our Instagram that him doing the wrestling moves, right, with his trainer. I mean, the dude is just,
he's fun.
He's fun, and he's super talented, and he doesn't get shook. You watch him coming into the ring, he's got a ton of charisma. He's never looks nervous or worried about the fight. He holds himself together.
It's funny
well.
the Teofimo Lopez comparison, I think, is a really apt comparison, because both guys are just, the charisma is just pouring out, right? You don't need to teach that. That they were probably little kids walking around being, the Mr. Popular at school, right? They ran preschool back in the day, right? They ran all that shit. That's just them. You can't teach that in Conor McGregor, for example. I think is another guy like that. That just naturally has charisma. Mayweather, for example, I think had to learn that. He had to learn a persona. It took him some time.
So it changed throughout his career too.
Absolutely. So it's funny that it's not that it's always a guarantee that natural charisma, or vice versa, not having natural charisma is deterrent to stardom. But having it obviously does help. It does help, because Israel Adesanya is doing numbers. Like you said, on the highlight reel videos on YouTube. You go type in Israel Adesanya on YouTube, it's insane the numbers he's doing. The amount of revenue he is generating for YouTube. If you really think about it, as a very corporatized standpoint, they must love that guy. Because there's videos multi-million views on some of those.
Well, even UFC's build up to the fight highlight reel, I think the Silva Adesanya was over 1 million something, and the other one was 200,000. Whittaker versus Gastelum. So it's everyone was kind of they're just blowing the co-main out. People aren't really. I don't think it's probably insulting to say no one's excited about Whittaker or Gastelum, because I think they are, but.
It's just all right. It's a
so
good
impressive.
fight. It's a good fight, and it's also Whittaker, I feel is in this weird situation, sort of like what Tyron Woodley had for some time, in a way, where Woodley he didn't get his respect. People didn't view him as the real champion. For whatever reason, I think. I see. Whittaker having that issue because of the whole Michael Bisping situation, him never really beating the champion. Whenever that happens, where an interim champion just gets propelled up, there is a slow sort of come around for the fans to, I think, appreciate them as champion. For a boxing comparison, look at the 140-pound division. It took a couple fights, I think, for us to start really respecting some of those guys as champions. And even then, there's an argument, I think, we still don't in a large capacity. I think Whittaker has that issue for some time now, especially on top of that. The 10 rounds he had with Yo Romero were close, competitive rounds where a lot of people think he lost that second fight. And also Kelvin Gastelum, a guy that just lost to Chris Weidman. The win against Jacare Souza was questionable. This fight is just a weird fight where it doesn't seem like it's the number one middleweight in the world still, if that makes sense. And that's no discredit to Bobby Knuckles, because Robert Whittaker is an insane talent. His striking ability is maybe not as creative and artistic as Adesanya, but it's absolutely as efficient, if not more efficient, honestly. His pinpoint accuracy with his jab, his leg kicks, his ability to just, I think, break people down systematically. On top of that, land hard, devastating shots. Like, Whittaker's a talented guy. Like, I know this fight is, in this card really, is a Australian Oceanic card that's building towards a Whittaker versus Adesanya fight. And I think that's probably what we're going to get next, because Whittaker's probably going to beat Kelvin Gastelum. No discredit to Kelvin Gastelum, but he is a 7.5 out of 10 in everything, right? Like, slightly above average. Really talented, but Whittaker's, I think, overall striking ability, again, that accuracy is just unreal. His ability to control range with the jab, and on top of that, he's been more proven. He just has. We've seen Kelvin Gastelum get to the not even to the top against Chris Weidman and lose. I think Whittaker should be in a relatively not easy fight, but it's going to look a lot like the Max Holloway-Brian Ortega fight, in my opinion, where Kelvin Gastelum's a tough guy. He's going to be in there for rounds, but he's going to get beat up in the process. And he might have moments where he catches Whittaker here and there, but it's going to be moments, fleeting moments. And I just see Whittaker's, pawing jab, maybe a left hook, and then that right high kick right to Kelvin Gastelum, the southpaw, and I see that just being open. I know that Mario Amasaki is in the chat saying I'm wrong. It's okay. It's okay, Mario. I still love. But Bobby fucking Knuckles is the champ, in my opinion. He may not be the champ in yours, but he's the champ in mine.
I want smoke.
Call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. Skype, Mixed Combat Radio. You know all that. You know what? I feel like I didn't even really introduce the show. I feel like I did that really shitty. Hit like button, share the show, subscribe. Patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. What else? Podcast. Drop that 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you. Back to you, Fugatti.
I was just gonna say, I think you're right. And the first fight was unanimous decision, correct? Versus Romero.
Yes.
The second fight ended in split decision.
Yes.
So I think you win an interim belt, you defend it in a split decision, like a weaker showing technically, I guess. And then, it is really hard for fans to get behind that. And I think the UFC has always kind of struggled with the interim belt thing. Like, people don't really like interim belts.
No.
They'd rather someone be stripped or something,
The UFC and just MMA fans in general, like, really, the idea of like multiple belts sort of being equal and in unison together, like that doesn't fly with them. Or just interim belts at all. Like, that's such a foreign concept to MMA fans that us boxing fans are like, just wait.
Happens all the time.
Just wait, man. It's gonna get worse, trust me.
Yeah.
But back to you.
Definitely. So I think that's some of it, and I think he'll be Gastelum. I think it'll be like a mid, anywhere from the second
third or
to
fourth. Third or fourth.
Yeah, and I think he'll knock him out. I think you're right. He's a lot more accurate. Gastelum, obviously, he packs a lot of power. If he catches him, it could be over.
Gastelum's a very powerful, strong talent, but he's also a guy that, if his physicality is not really being the determining factor in the fight, he struggles from a technical aspect. He just does. His striking's pretty good. His boxing's pretty good. That's why things are going to hang with Whittaker for rounds and have moments. But I think his timing isn't the same as Whittaker. His just overall fundamentals aren't the same as Whittaker. Like, Whittaker is polished. Like, you can, I could probably bet money that you could put Whittaker up there with some light heavyweight boxing champions in sparring, and it looks similar to like a Dillashaw Loma sparring or Shields, Chris Cyborg sparring. Like, it obviously there's the reason why there's levels, but he will match him in a sparring match, definitely. That's how good Robert Whittaker is from a boxing perspective.
Yeah, and I think if Yoel Romero can't maul you because of size and power, then Gastelum's not going to do it either. Because Yoel Romero's a fucking freak.
Yes.
He's crazy. So I think that fight is going to end with Whittaker maintaining the belt. But I mean, who does he need to beat, you think, before the UFC community is going to accept him as that middleweight, the top middleweight?
I think Adesanya is going to have to be that, honestly, or the winner of Adesanya Silva, just because if it's Anderson.
Okay.
On top of that, if that doesn't do it, I know Paulo Costa, and Yoel Romero is sort of like still trying to get made. If Paulo Costa beats Yoel Romero and he fights Whittaker, because Paulo has that Brazilian market all behind him. Plus, he has that like Anthony Joshua vibe where he's yoked out of his mind, good-looking dude. Has an entire nation behind him in a way. He may be a supporter of Bolsonaro, but that's beside the point. Shout out to MMA. Fuck. Bob Arum was right.
Bob Arum was right.
Digressing. But I think Whittaker, it's going to take a couple more fights at least. And even then, he may never be that guy. Like, we may just have to understand that Whittaker is a hardcore darling. And, we talked about this before. Like, there are ceilings for stardom for people. There are ceilings for talent for people. Sometimes those two things are completely different. We have supremely talented fighters that nobody knows. We have fighters that are well known that are utter dog shit. Ryan Garcia. The list goes on of how those two things aren't really the same at times. Whittaker to me is high talent, high ceiling, low stardom. And I just sort of see that. I think the UFC, in terms of like the corporatized side, not the fan side, they want Adesanya as champion for obvious reasons.
For sure.
I don't blame them. Adesanya seems like he could be a transcendental star if he just keeps winning. Like, imagine if Adesanya goes on a 5-fight, 6-fight title reign, where it's it's longer than a Chuck Liddell title reign, longer than Tito Ortiz title reign. That would be highly impressive. I'm curious to see that next fight. Obviously, is the winners of these two, this sort of unnamed 4-man tournament, because that's where I think we get sort of a bigger storyline, a bigger fight, a bigger sort of feel around fight week. And plus, this fight is in Australia. Like, that's always going to, I think, affect how U.S. media treats it, how much coverage there is, just from a logistics standpoint. Let's be honest.
King Rise is the truth.
That's funny, man. That's good.
But I think overall, I think this is a card that, casuals will really like. There's not a lot to understand here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you don't have to understand the ground game or what they're trying to do.
Both these fights these fights are going to be like casual, friendly fights. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think the buy rate will be good, but I do think that like it'll get a lot of replay.
Sports Center is going to love it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And just after watching the Romero Whittaker fights, like, I don't know how one of those didn't end in a KO. Oh my God. Like,
that second fight's insane. I've watched it a few times, just like the last couple of weeks. I'm just like, oh my God. Every time it happens, I'm like, and like, honestly, like, Whittaker like barely went down. Like, he was up and taking a lot of the punishment. Like, I think he got dropped for a split second here and there, like, of the two times, but it was like, again, split second. Like, his back hit the mat, got right back up, started taking more punishment. And then it was 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of Romero just destroying his liver and his face.
Yeah.
And him just taking it. And also, this was a Romero that missed weight. A Romero that missed weight by a lot. I forget the exact stat of like people that miss weight that win fights in the UFC. I think Mike Bond has that stat somewhere. Go check out his work. I want to say like most fighters that miss weight and just take the fine end up actually winning, because obviously not cutting that amount of weight and being bigger has advantages. I could be wrong about that, and maybe my point's absolutely wrong. Other fights on this card, though, I want to briefly mention, and it's not really fights, just fighters. I want to mention Ronnie Yaya on the card. Always shout out to Ronnie Yaya, one of the pure, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the game. Montana De La Rosa on the card. I think she could be a talent. Like, she could be somebody that we look at going forward. Same with Nadia Kassim. Like, that's just a good fight overall that I like. I could give two shits about Jim Crute versus Sam Alvey. What else? I really don't care about Teruto Ishihara anymore. Lando Venata, you're dope. Always shout out to Lando Venata, let's be honest, because that fight with Tony Ferguson will forever be a fantastic fight. Other than that, this card is utter trash in my opinion, and I will safely say that as a hardcore MMA fan. The early preliminary cards on UFC Fight Pass, then the preliminary card on ESPN, and then the main card on pay-per-view for anyone trying to watch in the U.S. Fu, any last thoughts on UFC 234?
No, not really. I mean, I think the co-mains are going to be great fights. Everyone's going to be entertained, and 235 is shaping up, I think, to be much better.
It's probably true, yeah, obviously. But actually, last point about 234 is that it will actually not air on DirecTV this weekend, as the UFC and the DirecTV have not renewed their pay-per-view deal. As a DirecTV subscriber, is that the right word, subscriber?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm big mad about this. I'm big mad. Because now I have to watch it on my computer instead of watching it on my TV. Thank you, DirecTV. It's also going to affect buy rate, obviously, on top of that.
I would imagine it's going to affect it probably drastically. There's a lot of DirecTV customers, so what are those people going to get pushed to buy it on PS4 or things like that? And then I don't think it factors the same.
Again, I have no idea why they couldn't come to an agreement. That's just weird. There we go. My topics were kind of frozen there. Bellator Newcastle's this weekend on DAZN. It will be on the Bellator app for the U.S. fans. On top of that, hold on, as I show you guys, go to ShareDog.com. Shout out to ShareDog, as they've hired me a couple times. Also, for the UK, it'll be on Channel 5 in the UK. I believe that's obviously going to be pretty big for the European series in the UK for obvious reasons. Any last for Bellator news? Oh, yeah, I want to sort of run down Bellator topics, sort of TV deals. Gareth Davies coming out saying, hearing that official announcement for Bellator MMA and Sky Sports is imminent. No details available, I should say, sorry. But it is on Sky Sports programming list for February 16, #Daily MVP Live. Obviously, it would be nice to have, Rob, just jump in for a second and be like, hey, here's what all these TV deals mean, and here's the ones that matter, here's the ones that don't, here's the ones that are bigger than the others. I'll be honest, I just am not knowledgeable enough to really do a deep dive on that. I think a Sky Sports deal would be optimal, to be honest, because I know Sky Sports is connected to combat sports for obvious reasons. I know Channel 5 is a free-to-air TV channel in the UK, so that should be beneficial to their very limited European series, which I think is 6 cards. But for us US fans, we get to watch on the app. Amazing. Woohoo.
It's bullshit.
But also Bellator just having, I think, not really some issue with sort of UK, I should say. They've been having massive issues with UK distribution rights. So hopefully this is some sort of resolution to it for the fans. I know UK media, UK fans have really been critical of Bellator's handling of their UK distribution. Fu, any thoughts about Bellator going to Sky Sports or their European series being on Channel 5? Anything like that?
No, I don't really know what Channel 5 is over there, like you said.
I think it's Channel 5.
I mean, but here it might be ABC. I don't know if it's a big channel for them or not,
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that Sky is, I believe, the biggest broadcasting station over there, from what Rob has always said about the boxing side. So if they're going to get on Sky, or they have a deal with Sky coming, that should help them drastically with distribution in the UK. But I think Bellator's, like you've told me before, is not on the same level, and I think it's even struggled here a little bit, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to sort of not really add to it, but sort of counter that, the Fedor Emelianenko Ryan Bader card did peak, I think, at over 1 million views on Paramount Network. That is a good viewership for them, because I think they average around like 400,000 to 500,000 viewers for their cars. So that's double the rate of their viewers. But overall, Bellator is a very second tier promotional company. Like, it is the major league to the minor league in very distinct ways, very obvious ways as well. Like, there may be some ultimate talents on there. Actually, minor league would probably be a bad example. Maybe like NBA and European League, because you can find some really talented players in the European League, right? Maybe that. Maybe, international football, not American football. Whereas, like, you can find really great players in MLS, but most of them are not in MLS. Most of them are in, like, La Liga, Premier League, etc. Like, they're in other leagues. They're not here in the U.S., but you can find great players in the U.S. Bellator is like that. It's like the U.S. for soccer.
Very similar to the stars in Europe, as they age, come to the MLS, usually get a decent contract and kind of just play over here,
That is a great comparison. Because that's obviously what happens for Bellator. They sort of grab the age, fighters from the UFC. They add, sort of whatever cast offs they can find, like a Ryan Bader. No offense to Ryan Bader. I think he's still a top 5 talent in his respective division, but he was a cast off. Did the UFC ultimately need him? That's probably a debate for another time, but I don't think they really did. But speaking of the UFC needing someone, someone's big mad, man. Colby Covington.
Don't be mad on me.
Considering a lawsuit against the UFC. And look, I've been on the show saying that, look, Colby Covington has a case to make that, not for a legal case, but a case to make that he should be the one getting the title shot against Tyron Woodley. Because ultimately, he is right. He should be the one getting the title shot against Tyron Woodley. On top of that, I do think it's the bigger fight. I do think it's a more interesting fight than Kamaru Usman for a variety of reasons that are pretty obvious. But Colby Covington now being the guy that is doing these types of videos now, the title of this article about Colby Covington's videos saying, here's that video of Colby Covington butt-slapping women to pimp his Super Bowl sponsor. We have that guy who does that video in aviators and a cut-off T-shirt saying that he's going to sue the UFC. This is the biggest, like, meta parody, like, moment in MMA and combat sports history, arguably. Like, I don't know if we have any sort of analog to this situation. Because at one hand, I do feel sort of bad for Colby. But on the other hand, he makes it extremely hard for me to feel bad for him. On top of that, he is the corniest, cringiest motherfucker, arguably in combat sports history. Right? Like, am I off on that, Fu?
Not at all. Not at all. Like I said, I'm fairly a casual at UFC, but we kind of passed this video around in our chat, and the whole time I was thinking, like, who is this guy? Like, you don't take him serious. And I think that the fighters that you really see kind of transcend the sport are really, like, even if you think about McGregor, yeah, McGregor talks a lot of shit. Yeah, McGregor says some things that, like, he probably shouldn't say. But if you look at him, like, when he's in public, he commands the space. Like, he's in interviews, he's great. He's never going to put out a video, I don't think, like smacking girls' asses and ask him to pimp his fucking sponsorships at the Super Bowl or something, you know? Like he values himself more than that. I think that this guy, like, it's weird. Like he's gone full on to like controversy sells. Let me be this like crazy kind of piece of shit guy and see if I can get like the internet troll community behind me, and then I'll shoot to stardom or something.
It's weird.
I don't really know what his thing is, you know, but it's very hard to like him.
It's very hard. He reminds me of, and this is like a deep political cut and like political media cut, but I know Fu will understand this joke. He reminds me of like Owen Benjamin. Right? Do you know who Owen Benjamin is?
I don't.
Oh my God. You don't know who this guy is? It's a deeper cut than Fu knows. Oh my God. You're going to love it. He used to be big friends with Sam Harris in like the intellectual dark web.
Okay.
Oh, you're gonna love it. Oh, I can't wait to send you videos. But anyways, digressing. He's just a guy that is trying to like be the edgelord, right? To use that internet term, right? He's trying to be Mr. Troll, and I don't understand why he thought that would be the right path to stardom, because he wasn't like this to begin with. But that's hilarious. I love that Mario knows who Owen Benjamin is. Thank you, Mario. You are now my favorite person in the chat. Fuck you, Fugatti. Anyways, last topic of the day, and then we're going to go to callers again, 323-870-4051. California State Athletic Commission will follow up on Vanderlei Silva after he reports 8 out of 10 concussion symptoms. And look, like the story of Vanderlei Silva, I think is going to get sadder before anything else, to be honest, and rather unfortunately. I don't really want to dwell on that too much because it is sort of sad, but I want to take it more macro in terms of just CTE, brain damage in combat sports. I think boxing has done a really bad job of addressing it and just overall talking about it. Like we have our Pritchard Cologne stories, for example, or Jeremy McKellen as well. Like we have certain stories of boxers, for example, that got brain damage that I think the community really surrounded around in a lot of ways. But it feels like the conversations never really progressed past supporting those people, right? This never progressed around, hey, how do we get like, I don't know, a pension for these guys? You know, I know the California State Athletic Commission have done that. Like they have a pension for boxers now. I know I talked about that on an MCR show maybe really early last year. So it's not surprising that they're following up with Vanderlei Silva and trying to look out for him and being proactive in that way. But the community as a whole just doesn't seem proactive. And I think when MMA really has this issue where we have fighters having severe brain damage and the effects of that are seen, and because MMA is such a more monopolized sport, it has such a bigger spotlight on it than I think individual boxers in boxing, I think hopefully the conversation becomes proactive when it comes about brain damage, CTE in combat sports. I think, again, it's been very surface level, unfortunately. And I think we can progress past that, hopefully. Fu, any thoughts about Vanderlei Silva, California Athletic Commission, CTE, all of the above?
I mean, I watched a fight of his on Bellator a few months back with oh my God,
Chael Sonnen. Was it Chael Sonnen?
Chael, and then the fight before that too. So with Jackson.
Oh, Rampage Jackson. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and so the whole time I just thought, like,
I scrubbed that fight from my memory. I'll be honest. Like I didn't want to remember that. It's
a matter of like, look, I understand, like, you still want to fight, you love doing it, but there's an age, I think, where you hit, especially in UFC, it's way more brutal, I think, than even just boxing. You know, in terms of you have the full arsenal. You know, you full range of knees, head kicks. things that can legitimately ruin someone's life. At that age, too, now knowing 8 out of the 10 symptoms of having concussion, I think he really just needs to retire. I mean, I understand he's a big name they can throw on cards, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look for, Bellator. And we've seen how things looked with Oscar De La Hoya with the card that he promoted, in MMA. It's just fans don't want to see people put themselves in a position to like get hurt at that point, that age. Like we all understand that it's a fight and someone could get hurt, but you don't want to watch like your grandpa get beat up or your grandpa get knocked out, like it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same.
Well, I mean, like look at Roy Jones, like towards the end of his career. Like I know they gave him a lot of gimme fights, but it got towards the end where like even in the gimme fights, people didn't want to watch. Like you said, like just an old man fight. It becomes sort of just too hard to see.
Yep. Yeah. It's not a good look for the sport. I don't think fans enjoy it, and I really just think eventually he should just retire.
I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree.
So that's it on that for me.
All right, let's go to callers. Santiago, I know you haven't pressed 1, but I'm assuming you want to talk. Santiago, what's up?
Not much. I think I'm probably one of the few people who doesn't have to press 1 to still be on the queue for you, so that's nice. I'm doing good, man. Just here listening to the MMA show and enjoying something after a very long and arduous day of work. There's not much to say for me regarding this. I've seen Whittaker fight. I've obviously seen and done some fight chats with you with Gastelum. I still remember when we did that one with him knocking out Vitor Belfort. And I love Adesanya. I obviously know who Silva is. My picks for the weekend for this fight, Gastelum and Adesanya. I don't know much more than what I know about both guys, but these are the picks that I'm sticking with. And for Adesanya, definitely, I think that at this point he's catching Silva at the right time. He is an older fighter. I do definitely agree with Fugate that I think that his age is going to help him last longer in the fight. And if he does get knocked out, it's going to be in the later rounds, and that's probably just due to old habits dying very hard. Maybe he's going to find himself trying to do what he did back then when he first fought Chris Weidman with the head slip, and he's just going to get caught. Who knows? But I definitely think that it'll be a very impressive win for Adesanya. It'll be his time to shine, and I look forward to seeing the co-main and main event come Saturday. Maybe if I have the time, I can hit you up and I can join you for a fight chat. That's pretty much all I have to say. Anything you want to ask me specifically, feel free to shoot. Otherwise, that's my call. Keep doing what you guys are doing. And kudos to you, Fugate, on being on the show.
Hey, thanks, Santi. I appreciate that a lot. It's been a lot of fun to be on here. And who is this 60-year-old fighter you were talking about? Is that a boxer or an MMA guy?
Oh, I'll go back to Santi. Sorry, I muted him. Santi.
His name was Sal Mambi. He was a boxer, far way back in the day, and he was noted for being the oldest fighter to compete in a sanctioned professional boxing match at 60. No actual clue as to whether or not he did win that fight, but that was, in fact, his last fight at 60 before he retired.
Thank you.
Good Lord, man. I'm 38, and some mornings I get out of the bed, and I'm wondering if I'm going to be able to make it for the day.
I'm 20.
60 years old.
I'm 23, man. I think that on a regular basis. But anyways, digressing. That's about it for today's show. Numero 2, dose, whatever. Second show of the day. Definitely go back and check our boxing show. Covered Anthony Joshua getting 30 million pounds to face Big Baby Miller. Go collect the bag, man. Go collect the bag. Plus, Rob had a little mini freak out. Which I think everyone should go watch because he got called to the mat. It's okay. Shit happens. And the best part is, Fugate, I know he won't hear me talking shit about him right now on this show because he won't make it this far in this show, right? That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping, at least. But anyways, you can catch me, Matt Hunter, MCR, all platforms. Hit like button, share the show. Subscribe if you're listening right now on podcast form. Drop that 5-star review on iTunes. Head over to patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. Fugatti, let people know where they can find you and final thoughts.
You can find me at Fugatti MCR on Twitter. You can also follow our Instagram. Obviously, I run that with Rob. We both throw stuff up there. We always post the upcoming shows, and if the time changes, we try to put countdowns so you guys kind of know when we're going live. And I know most of you guys are subscribed, but you're able to follow and get messages that way too. But final thoughts, I think Stylebender by unanimous decision. I would love to see a knockout. And then, I think Whittaker is going to knock Gastelum out anywhere between the 2nd and 4th round. So,
wait, I love how he's like anywhere between the 2nd and 4th round, aka most of the fight.
Well, it's not going to be a 1st round, and I don't think it'll go to 5.
But I just hope you understand, saying hey, the fight most likely will get finished in maybe 3 out of the 2 rounds. 3 out of the 5 rounds. It's not like a real oh, what a prediction.
There's a lot of time in there though. Come on. That's 15 minutes, Matt.
I know it's 15 minutes. Anyways, have a great day, people. Good night, and see y'all tomorrow. Peace.
Later, guys.